Last week in my budget plan video where I talked about our anticipated expenses for next month, I mentioned reaching a major milestone in our debt-free journey and that our total debt payoff was under $100,000. But was I factoring in everything? So for you budgeting nerds out there, today I am going over all our numbers in detail. I'm going to tell you exactly how much we actually have left in our debt payoff, and then I'm going to briefly discuss our plans going forward for our debt-free journey. Hi, I'm Wendy Valencia. My husband Mauricio and I used to be horrible with money. And if I'm being totally honest, we are both spenders and we both have a little bit of lack of impulse control. Although we're getting so much better with time and practice, we also both have an amazing ability to justify any expense, no matter how ridiculous it is. But we're also getting better about that one too. And we also had the complete inability to say no to the other one. We are so much better with this one. But we're not always perfect. You would think that all of these behaviors were our major contributors to our huge amount of debt when we started, but that actually wasn't the case for us. From the very first day of marriage, Mauricio and I were tight financially, so we never really shopped, and what little extra we did have, we were somehow managing to just always be giving it away. In truth, our financial plan was completely non-existent. We did not plan for anything, and if something big came up, we just borrowed the money from the bank and moved on. We always seemed to be able to afford the payments, even though I don't think we were really affording them. But back in April of 2016, everything changed. We, as a couple, decided to pay off our debt and never borrow money again. And thus far, we have completely stuck to that, with the minor exception of June 2016, where we had to borrow about $4,000 from our checking line of credit to get out of a contract that would have cost us, so much more than $4,000. But you all know having to borrow money for an emergency is not uncommon in the beginning of someone's debt-free journey. It's actually kind of normal. YouTube is peppered with videos of people who just start out and find themselves slapped with an emergency before they have their financial act together. And then they have to borrow from their emergency fund, if they even have an emergency fund, or if their emergency is more than the emergency fund, they have to borrow money to get through it. So should you be new to this whole debt-free thing, know that what is happening to you is normal, and don't worry, you are not alone. Okay, let's start talking about all the debt we took out when we started. And I'm not talking about when we started the plan. I'm actually talking about the debt that we took out when we took it from the bank. And I'm not going to list these in any particular order because this is just the way, actually it's the way we paid them off. That's why I'm listing them that way, or the way we plan to pay them off. We had a Navy Federal checking line of credit, which started out at $1,000, but it grew to $5,000 when we borrowed that $4,000 that I just talked about. We had another Navy Federal credit union line of credit, which started at $5,000. We had a Navy Federal loan, which started out at a shocking $140,000. Why someone would lend anyone $140,000 with no collateral is shocking to me. Our Navy Federal Visa started out at $15,500. Our car loan started out at $26,213.26. Our USAA loan started out at $75,000. And yes, that was $140,000 and $75,000, both with no collateral. Banks, you are insane. Mauricio's school loan, which started out at $50,565.70. And then there's our personal loan, which started out at $28,000. So if you add up all of these debts, you get $345,278.96. Makes you like suck in your breath, doesn't it? But that's actually not where we started this program. And in truth, it's really actually kind of complicated for us to figure out where we started, because I hadn't really written anything down, and Mauricio's school loan didn't come due until we were about 18 months into our debt payoff. So we totally ostriched about the whole thing and about what we actually owed. And yes, I'm using ostrich as a verb. We basically put our heads in the sand like an ostrich and pretended that the debts didn't exist because it wasn't due yet. So that wasn't factored in when we started. That's why if you look back on some of my old videos, it says I owe 200 and then 250, and then we never knew how much we owed because we were not being honest. So, and then on top of that, we had paid off a little bit of those debts already when we actually started paying off debt, because we had made our self-imposed minimums. That's how we've always paid off our loans, is with self-imposed minimums, which is more than the actual minimum payment. But honestly, we hadn't paid off a lot because the two biggest loans, the $140 and the $75,000 ones, were taken out within the previous year. So they were still pretty much just going to interest. Then we bought the car like 3 months before we started the whole decision to pay off debt. And if I had to guess, probably the car was the thing that threw us over the edge. But if I really were trying to figure it out, maybe we had paid off like $20,000. So let's just say we started with like $320,000-ish. So now let's fast forward to today. Let's talk about our debt payoff to date by going over which debts we paid off in the last 3 years. So for the first 18 months, we kind of struggled a lot to put extra money to our debt payoff. Mauricio was Ubering and Amazon flexing and doing some part-time contract jobs, but the income was just keeping us afloat because he, for all intents and purposes, was unemployed while he was waiting for his clearance to come through. So his whole reason for existence was to keep it going where we did not have to borrow money every month. So we were just barely making it. So during that time, we actually decided we needed to get 1 full month ahead because I honestly could not function trying to plan a budget when I didn't know what our income was actually going to be. Once we had gotten 1 month ahead, we started putting all our extra money to our big loan because we kind of wanted to pay that off first, the $140,000 one. Needless to say, on paper, it looked like we had made very little headway because we hadn't paid anything off in those first 18 months. Finally, in November of 2017, I told Mauricio that I wanted to get our 2 smallest debts out of the way because I felt like we needed to see a little bit of success in our debt payoff. So in December of 2018, we paid off the first Navy Federal checking line of credit. So that $5,000 was completely gone. And in January of 2018, the following month, we were able to pay off the second line of credit. So that was another $5,000 down. And then 9 months later, we paid off what we always called the big loan. And that was the $140,000 Navy Federal Credit Union loan. And at that point, we were like solidly flying high. We could like see light at the end of the tunnel. And we had completely gotten rid of $150,000 worth of debts. And then the government shut down for 2 months and we went into massive storm mode. I may have done a video or two about the government being shut down and the impact on our income. And just so you know, Trump just announced a couple of weeks ago that we may be going to shut down again. And when the government opened back up and we had gotten our back pay in March of 2019, we paid off the credit card. So that was another $14,000 gone. So let's go ahead and discuss what we have left in our debt payoff. So that leaves us with $9,927.47 on our car. Our USAA loan is sitting at $37,595.83. Mauricio's school loan is still sitting at $50,212.62. And our personal loan is $20,844.07. So that totals $118,579.99. So why did I say we were under $100,000 in my budget plan video? Well, honestly, when I was filming the video, I went to check my totals in Undebt, and I had forgotten that we pulled out the $20,000 personal loan that we still owe my parents out of Undebt because I had been running some comparison scenarios and I forgot to put it back in. And honestly, our plan is to wrap up that $20,000 in the sale of the house so they'll have it available to them in one giant lump sum for use in their buy-in and their medical care prepayment. So the number on my Undebt says $98,000 when it should be $118,000. And then we have that little matter of the loans that we co-signed for my sister-in-law and her husband to the tune of just under $40,000. And for those of you who are new, we sponsored my sister-in-law and her husband to come to the United States to go to college, and we're supporting them 100%. And then my sister-in-law, when she was on a trip back to Colombia, she made an appointment to get her student visa transferred to her new Colombian passport, and they revoked it right there on the spot. And we really don't know why for sure it happened, and we're never gonna know. So now that my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law are back in Colombia, and my brother-in-law is making a Colombian salary because cost of living is so much lower there, and it's way lower than a US salary, there is no way on God's green earth they are going to be able to make those school loan payments, because I'm pretty sure his income is probably less than one of his monthly school loan payments. But when we co-signed the loan, we actually knew that was a possibility, and we had committed to it before we had decided to do this big debt payoff thing. So where does that leave us now? As you all know, we're still making our self-imposed minimum monthly payments to debt to the tune of about $1,850 a month, more or less. And these aren't our actual minimum payments. They're the minimum Mauricio and I decided would be the lowest we would be willing to make to debt every month. Plus, now we're in the process of saving $60,000 to buy my parents' house. So when they're ready to go, we have 5% down and enough for closing costs. And we only have about $5,000 saved for that at the moment. And it's kind of funny because Mauricio and I both would much rather pay off the debt first. But my parents' situation is so up in the air that if we don't prepare for it now, we could miss this opportunity altogether. And this is a phenomenal financial opportunity for us, since they'd be selling the house at a significantly reduced cost, giving us a huge amount of equity when we went in. It would be financially stupid for us not to do it, because if down the road, we have to sell it for some reason, we're gonna have a ton of equity already in the house. And we need to start looking way down the pike, and we need to start planning for how we're gonna survive when Mauricio leaves his job to go to graduate school, because for what everyone says, there's no way in hell you can go to graduate school in architecture and work at any job. But that's still a few years off. He's got to complete some architecture undergraduate school at our local community college, which is super cheap, and that's the way we've opted to do that. It's amazing how far we've actually come financially. If you look at us talking about planning for something that is still several years away, and then compare it to like 3 years ago when we were complete buffoons about money. So after all this, I bet you're wondering why we have so much debt. And most people do wonder why we could have so much commercial debt. I mean, our starting point is more than most people's houses. But the story isn't one of shopping and expensive cars and luxury vacations. So if you're interested in seeing why we have so much debt, I'm gonna point you right up here to one of the very first videos I ever made, and it's super old and it's very cringy, but it explains everything very, very well. So I'll see you in the next one. See ya. We're out.